Yeah, that is not Googleable.
So I appreciate that. So you come back in, and now you're making your own stuff. You're participating in this in your neighborhood back in the UK.
hmm
So,
I'm having sound clashes in school and all of them things
and
there.
this is in
Trying to be,
the late '90s or the mid to late '90s,
yeah.
and
So this is like my last stage of school. So we're saying 95 to 98.
and
Yeah, 15 to 18.
what part of the UK are you in?
I'm in London, so I'm in the capital,
All right,
which plays a big part too, because like it's like America. Every part you go to has a different flavor or vibe, you know. So I am born in London, but raised by way of Bristol and London. And Bristol has like a different kind of culture for jungle music.
okay,
You know, we was very big in the jungle thing, the drum and bass on that side, which changes a whole lot to what you lot hear over there. Yeah, because we mongrelize music more than you could ever imagine. Like literally mongrelize music. We have so much influences and spin-offs. Lovers Rock, that's a UK invention. You know, Grime, Speed Garage. We got loads of sounds that we really was raised on.
right.
And if you liked it or not, you could be a hip hop fan, but you loved house and garage music because it made you feel amazing. You know, you're in the dancers doing the gun thing. Oh, shut up! Vibing out. This was a thing. So when you're growing up, especially as the 80s, me being raised in the 80s, from the 80s to 2000, the influences are amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
So you're doing the lunch table thing. You banging it up there. You got, it's basically the same shit that was happening in the '90s in America, but your version of it.
Yeah, straight up. We're all outside in the field doing the barring thing until 97. No, yeah, 97. 96, 97, I changed because I didn't feel like dancehall gave me enough expression.
Mm.
And I started getting very much into the Mob Deeps and the Nas's and so forth and taking in more of that. But I was very much more on the side of a Black Star. I like the whole conscious energy more than anything. So the Black Star had me up. Over here, we had London Posse, which was like a real staple diet. But then we had our own legends coming through at the time, which we could have something to acknowledge to, you know? So
So
it
actually,
changed.
so in the '90s, right? How are you getting hip hop? Like in Canada, there's a law where you're forced to play 30% Canadian music, so all of us know the same Canadian legends because anytime a Canadian song gets buzz, everybody plays it. So
Mhm.
how do you like consume new hip hop? Like, is there a delay in it getting to
England
you?
weren't like that, you know. England was mad because we didn't really have it like that. Westwood weren't really banging English artists at the time
Right.
because that didn't make hot radio. What made hot radio was the international acts coming over. And, you know, we would have our tapes lined up. I know I did cassette, and you tape them 45 minutes, Eminem special when you came over the one time on Westwood. And we get it from the radio. The radio did their job, but it wasn't very UK based.
Right.
It was primarily American hip hop that you got through it. And the UK, you would have to really be immersed in a scene to see it, or you wouldn't get it.
And were you immersed at that point?
At that point, I knew enough. I won't say immersed, but because I was like a person that used to acquire CDs and sell CDs, yeah, I used to have a lot of like, you know, uh, a lot of plugs to when it came to albums because I had a lot of the links for it.
Okay.
So in that kind of respect to things, I was musically in touch. But the UK scene, I won't say there was enough for you to really have a face of it, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I kind of get it in the Montreal scene's kind of going through its version of that. So like maybe not as a country, but I kind of get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So like basically, as you're going through high school, do you at some point you get into the more conscious hip hop, and are you like recording songs at this point? Are you writing songs, or is it more just like, you're just kind of
This is
freestyling?
this is when I actually started mixing up with the crew. This is when you start making your own little crews. So the first crew I had was like Liquid Gold, I swear it was. And it was a crew that I had in the school. And, we would sit there and write bars together, but it was that cringy young age where you're just writing mad things in it. It was that until I went to my cousin's, and my cousin, it started with Music 2000, I believe. Yeah, maybe before that. No, we had a Cubase, a groove box. Yeah, one of the old school groove boxes. And we started making beats on that. And we was like, this is epic. We can make beats, yeah?
So a groove box is a sample machine, or
Yeah, one of them old school sample machines. Like, I've never been a techie, but we went through a lot of technology at the time. Yeah, that just from that little groove box. It started with the groove box. And we was making stuff and writing. And it would be about four of us, five of us writing in this house. This house turned into what would later then be my group called the Kings. Yeah, Kings of the Cosmos. It's like the best album that never came out. One of these kind of things. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. It was as producers and so forth. We made amazing shit. Like really, just amazing quality music that never went nowhere because we never did the final part. The push. Yeah, as much as we tried, it just never came together over like 10 years. And it's a shame. We made a mixtape out of it. We made like individual projects, but never that collective king. Even though it's recorded, it's out there on SoundCloud, but we never actually pushed it.
So you guys made it, but never did anything with it. So it's like it could have been, but
It's the monster that could have been. Let's
mm.
say it as that. One
You said
day
that's
I'll
over
just
10
unfold it.
years.
Yeah. hmm
That's a wild
In
period,
10 years,
and
it's a very long time.
so that's kind of like your focus is being in this group over, I guess, the beginning of your career.
Yeah. I was very loyal to it. And like loyal to a fault. At the time, it was kings or nothing. And maybe to my detriment, because I've always been a bit of a wolf kind of brother. So if there's an open mic or whatever, I run one up and I go there by myself and destroy a mic. Used to love waiting for that open mic queue. I'll be itching. I got something for them. Go and just shell it. And every time I shell it, they're like, who's this guy? And I'm like, yeah. And I remember at the time I was in a school in North London doing sixth form stuff. And there's a guy called Skinny Man who's a legend over here, like proper legend. And word got about because I was just destroying kids in the school. Like I was having fun. I freestyle very well from very young. So I used to just destroy people with freestyles. And word got about, and there was a few people that was always like, come see me, man, you could be part of this. But my loyalty was to a fault. I was just like, nah, I'm a king for life. Which, if in hindsight, I would never do again. You know, honest, I would never do again. I appreciate in holding the validity of myself to myself,
I
if
mean,
you know what I mean.
I get it. I mean, if I could go back 10 years and I could not say certain things or rechange certain relationships that I maybe didn't play right, I would. There are plenty of moments like that in the past that I would do differently, so it makes sense.
But no, I wouldn't change nothing because everything they give me was a foundation to build on,
Mm.
and it was really good.
But
There was
if given a choice sometimes here and there, maybe you would make a different choice.
man, we would make a lot of different choices. It would be a different life then. It's the choices and the consequences that make you what you are now.
That's
So I'm
true.
happy with the journey.
And I think about that kind of shit a lot. I love sci-fi and whatnot. So like that kind of mind puzzle, I think about like what would you do if you could go back with the knowledge you have now and all that kind of crap. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of grateful that I like my 30s. So I'm like happy with where I'm at because it'd probably feel different if I didn't. And then that's another part of it too. Like if you're kind of happy with where your life ended up, that's gonna play heavy into it. But so you basically throughout the 90s and I guess early 2000s in this group, are you guys like performing and like doing any kind of touring? And also,
Yeah.
what's the open mic scene, right? Like, because keep in mind, we're talking about the 90s in London's open mic scene. Like, I don't know anybody that's ever talked to me about that.
Especially when you're talking like 2000s, yeah? Because if you was to think of it, they say in retrospect, we're always 10 years behind America, yeah? Our glory years. So when we got into hip-hop like that, we was kind of 10 years behind, you know? When we're dropping Fubu, they're onto something else, you get me? Like, I had a lineup of Fubu and Kalakani, but then it changes eras, and then the Iceberg and the Moschino change things, and you know, the looks keep changing along with the time, and 10 years later we catch up. This is the life at the time. And I love saying that because shit has changed completely now.
Yeah.
You know?
Somehow Drake's bringing UK stars and now everybody making UK drill knockoffs.
Listen, because you got to understand, we're at our shine now. Yeah? There was a point when America had a shine, and that shine was flawless. I call that glory. 90s to 2010, that shit was flawless, yeah. Then after that, it kind of just got a bit saturated with so many artists doing so much of the same kind of formula, yeah. But England at this present moment, if you speak to the average kid, doesn't listen to American music. That wasn't a thing back in my day, you know. We even tried to rap kind of American sounding to make sure it was right, yeah?
Yeah, that's but a big statement.
They're not trying it. They're not trying it no more. It's real. It's so real. That's why.
I mean, I'm telling you, the guy who's going to edit this video, my man's Chris Chrome, he is obsessed with the UK scene right now. And I mean, like, you could probably find him some mediocre shit and he'd still like it more than American music just because of the style and the overall energy it brings in. And every time I've ever reviewed a UK shit, not to say shit, but like a UK project, I fucked with it. Like I did the Dizzy Rascals first one just to like from that era, and I've also done like newer stuff, and it's like there's a whole, it's different. There's all more repetition.
And like, you see the thing,
and I don't understand it all, but it's not American, and I kind of fucks with that.
You see, like even that, you see when people say Dizzy Rascal,
yeah,
they refer to Dizzy Rascal as UK hip hop, yeah. That's not. Dizzy Rascal has nothing to do with hip hop. He's a grime MC. Yeah, that dude is 100% grime. Yeah, from the days when, even if you wanted to call it, it was Eskimo. Before that, there's a whole sound. Yeah, that's not hip hop.
I hear what you're saying, and I know what you're saying is like, but it's like my brain has a lot of trouble processing that. Like I know because like they're so like similar, but I know that they're not. But like,
all right. Listen, conventional hip hop, when you're talking boom bap hip hop, yeah, that Dizzy Rascal does not fall in that category, yeah. That our legends over there are Black Twang, Skinny Man, London Posse, MCD. These are like legends that I can tell you. If you go and research them, you will hear hip hop bars, style, pattern.
right.
Whereas Dizzy comes from grime, Skepta, grime, gigs, that new kind of UK drill rap.
So like, here's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to argue with you from a point of like arguing with you. It's more like I've always, because Linkin Park and nu metal are like the shit when I'm 12. All right, so my entire perception on music is like genre lines are kind of blurry already because everything's fucking changing and then everything's a remix and then. So it's already kind of blurry to me. And then we get to this point where when I hear it, it sounds like, I don't want to call it a subgenre, but in the vein of like a cousin of hip hop. Like they mad, like a higher energy. Like it's like because when I review it, as a reviewer, it's like they're
Mm-hmm.
not like that different. Like I hear what you're
All
saying.
right, I'll tell you what's the difference. I'll tell you the simple differences. Yeah, one simple difference is hip hop usually spans between 80 to like 96, maybe 105. Yeah,
Right.
you're lucky, fast. Yeah, house and G goes from 120 to 130. Yeah, grime is built on 130. Grime has more influence than with house than it does with hip
So
hop.
is it because of the BPMs? Like, cause I'm
No, it's the style. So it before, if you went to a house and G party, the MC's in the place like this, telling you to come move up, Chris, 22 to the lemon and bright. Yeah. Then that energy got darkened. Yeah. We're not gonna make it so dancey and girl skanky like this now. We're gonna make it more for the youth them and the gunman energy. So we darkened that energy a bit, and then you got the grime. Yeah. So grime to me is more a subsidiary of house and garage than it is directly hip hop. That's what we've turned it into because we darkened the sound. But it works
So in a
on
sense, it's
130
kind of like
BPM.
how trap is not like really hip hop. It's kind of a different thing, or like how drill is kind of different.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of like relationship more than it all being like the same style. I think I get what you're saying, but like for me, try because I did the review, I got the comments, I got the people being like, "Bro, you don't know anything," and I'm like, "Nah, I don't know anything." So then I just always say that at the beginning now, but it's super hard to wrap my head around it. Like I hear what you're saying, and I've heard it before, and I understand it all from like a
Uh-huh.
chart. Like if I'm looking at it in my head from like a chart of history. But when I hear the shit, I mean, listen, like I like high energy music, so like for me, like hip hop could be like 160. That's cool, but that's like
Mhm.
how I see it. But like maybe I just take a broader view of it, you know? Like when I use the term, it's a lot broader than like the more traditional. Because I don't go to New York first. I know we're on the end of the week. It's not my first thought. It's not New York boom bap. It's really not.
Mhm.
So it's like it's interesting to hear you break it down that way because it matters actually, and I don't think a lot of us.
I tell you, my little thing lately is I've been checking into these things, yeah, about these subgenres. And Raw Digger was on the show the other day talking about um they opened up the bracket of R&B to allow so much other things into R&B. Yeah, and then what was traditionally known as R&B is now called neo soul. Yeah, it got a whole new tag. Um, Beanie Man going on saying it's bashment, it's not sorry, it's dancehall music, it's reggae. Yeah, and then people are taking it and putting subgenres on it, like reggaeton, and then these kind of things, which take away from the essence of what it was or
Mm.
what it originally is, and then you take away the power of what the music originally is. You know, so when we're actually broadening these scopes, yes, it's easy for us to interpret what bracket to put it in, but at the same time, you take away something just by doing that. You
Mm.
know, grime is a really big element by itself. It deserves its respect, whether it be a little cousin or anything.
And I'm not.
What grime has done, no, I'm not saying as an offense,
No,
but
no.
what grime has done as a subgenre is amazing. It's like taking punk music in the 80s, being unapologetic to it, all the kids just completely believing in this sound, and now it's the number one. Now you cannot get away from it. Everybody is doing grime. The resurgence of grime is back. It's being accepted as like the English football anthem music. You know, it's crazy. That's full 360 to me. So like, just into compartmentalize genres is very easy to do that, and then you take away the essence of what that music is. And that's kind of only in this age now, but a lot of what I'm reflecting into, you know?
Mm.
Like,
I
for
really,
instance, I love,
I really like that answer. I think it really like taps into the value of something that I don't think a lot of us do think about in terms of what happens when you redefine what the words mean, especially with generational gaps. Like one of the biggest things when I talk to young people is a lot of them don't consider themselves hip hop artists. Even if
Exactly.
but that's the label you have to pick on Spotify. It's not like you have another option. It's just you pick that
Well, you
shit.
do now. You have experimental, you have electronic, you have.
Mm,
There is so much genres that you can pocket yourself into, which in this age of algorithm
okay.
probably works very well because it makes it easier to suggest what you like.
That's fair. I don't know enough about the other subgenres. I know that when I've looked at the list, the one that usually best applies is hip hop rap. So I picked that one because experimental, I picture like out there Björk music or some really out there shit. So maybe that's just my not understanding of the words. But that's another
Mm-hmm.
part of what you're saying, even in a sense, without putting the right respect on the words to understand what the genres are. We can't even necessarily leverage the tools of today. Or if we had a better understanding, the algorithms would be tighter.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nifty idea, all things considered. And I do think grime is cool. I've listened to a fair bit of grime, and while in my head I've always just
Love it.
called hip hop because it is, but I love the energy. I like. I just think like punk is more fun than most rock because it's faster and more intense and more upbeat, and it just tears shit up more. That's why I'm a lot.
And that's Grime. That
So
is
I
Grime.
fucks with
It's
that heavy.
fast. This big in your face energy.